Wars and rumors of war. Military parades, civil unrest, and mass demonstrations are highlighted features in the headlines and the topics of engagement today on social media. And these are what pundits call the off-year elections, with Virginia and New Jersey hosting statewide elections for offices as high as governor. So all eyes are on the Garden State and the Old Dominion State as the nation moves forward toward the midterm elections next year for control of the Congress. Can you hear the people singing the songs of angry men? It is the music of a people who shall not be slaves. Again, it says the melody. And boisterous chants echoing the words, "No kings," notwithstanding, in a state pitting two women against one another, each vying to make history in the cradle of presidents, at least according to local press accounts. Bookies probably wouldn't even lay odds on the chance of Republicans picking up the 8th congressional district seat. It seems so out of reach. And in Arlington, the crown jewel of a kingmaker congressional district that has decided the outcome of elections, holding 168,000 active voters, mostly Democrats. Democrats hold almost all the levers of power. And the voters there are so solidly blue. They are among the Northern Virginians who usually provide the margin of victory for Democrats who win statewide. They also tend to vote late, which provides an obvious advantage because you know what has already come in. But with 29.1% foreign-born, VA8 is second in Virginia out of 11 other congressional districts in foreign-born residents. Second in Virginia out of 11 other congressional districts in population. Third in Virginia out of 11 other congressional districts in income per household. And among 767,596 residents, 63.9% are white, 13% are black, 19% are Hispanic or Latino, and 53.3% are white, not Hispanic or Latino, ranked first in Virginia out of 11 other congressional districts in race, Hispanic or Latino. But still, the whitest majority congressional district that is Democrat Party affiliated in the entire nation. Ranked first in Virginia out of 11 other congressional districts in home median income, and first out of 11 other congressional districts in income per capita. VA8 is the first in Virginia out of 11 other congressional districts in residents with a college degree, age 25 or older. And they boast 89.4% residents with a high school diploma, age 25 and older. 60% of residents with college degrees that are of that same age. And this is the locus of a current court battle underway in Richmond, involving, of all possible things, the Republican nomination process for U.S. congressional candidates in a congressional district in which Republicans may fairly be described as only make-a-statement candidates, playing to a small far-right leaning base in that district. While the real race for Congress in this district is always, since Republicans lost control back in the 1990s, the Democrat nomination, the outcome of which is tantamount to election in November. Now recall, as far back as 1980, Ronald Reagan had won Arlington County. But at that time, Republicans were losing in nearby Alexandria 2-1. This is the history, the voting history of this particular district. Donald Trump did slightly better in Arlington in 2024 than 2020 and 2016 on parliamentary analysis. But the difference was only slight, and the chair of the Arlington County Democratic Committee recently told his party's rank and file these basic facts. In fact, in 2024, Harris received 77.53% of the Arlington vote to 19.47% for Trump. Slightly lower, about 10 points as the highest than your local candidates will bear in this particular community. While in 2020, the breakdown was 80.6% for Biden to 17.1% for Trump. And Trump's improvement in Arlington was mirrored across Northern Virginia, where he picked up a larger percentage than his two earlier races. However, the local region remains undoubtedly solidly Democratic in its leanings. Despite the Republicans capturing the governorship in 2021, a trend one gubernatorial hopeful had hoped to ride to victory in November. Even though hope is not a plan, the upward swing wasn't quite enough to put Virginia in play in 2024, and it has not been in play for many, many decades. Harris defeated Trump statewide by only 5.78 percentage points, while Clinton beat Trump in 2016 in Virginia by 5.4 percentage points in votes. A year in which VAA, up 6 points in voter turnout, had been the leading Democrat Party congressional district in the entire nation, hovering around a 5-point margin. In 2016, VA8 had been ranked D plus 15. But with voter turnout, they had catapulted after that election to D plus 21 at 6 points. And now at D plus 26, indicating a continuing trend of gaining advantage for Virginia Dems statewide. One can only note the drop from the 10.1% win of Biden over Trump during the record-breaking voter turnout during the pandemic election of 2020. Stop the steal, to justify reports that Arlington's Republican leader said the trend was positive. Unless he is relying on something other than faith, because Arlington Republicans have said of record they are not a church. And according to reports, the leadership concedes that all Arlington Republicans haven't had a robust precinct-level operation in a generation. While over the decades, the Arlington County Democratic Committee has built and maintained one of the most formidable get-out-the-vote efforts in Virginia, and perhaps the nation. In addition to pre-election efforts, Democrats have enough volunteers to have 2 or 3 captains in each of Arlington's 54 precincts, in addition to volunteers providing voter assistance at the precincts on Election Day. And their role is to recruit and supervise others who will connect with voters in that precinct, then be on hand on Election Day. Whereas you very rarely see any Republicans at all on Election Day. And some may recall, as far back as a decade ago, hearing similar reports that the Arlington County Republican Committee was ramping up efforts to have a solid precinct operations apparatus in place by the general election back in 2014, when the Arlington GOP leadership was desperately looking for those willing to serve as captains in Arlington's only 52 precincts leading up to the election, 2 less precincts than exist today. And all politics, however, is local. But once more, in this election year, on the local level, not even the Republican leadership is stepping up to run for local office, have teeth in the game. And once more, Arlington GOP has fallen short on recruiting candidates for school board, county board, or even state delegate to serve in the legislature in Richmond. But come next year, with the reliability of cherry blossoms blooming in the spring along the Potomac and Democrat candidate signs along every median, at least a handful of Republicans in Arlington and BA8 will toss their hat in the ring to say, why hell, I'll run for Congress, or not, depending upon a case now being decided in Richmond to determine whether or not a Republican next year will be able to say, I want to beat a millionaire. At least voters in New Jersey religiously playing the New York Lotto. No. To win it, you first got to be in it. And the fate of future Republican candidates now hinges upon a recent enactment passed by the legislature, which found its first ripple of effects in the last congressional election cycle, when apparently only one of 6 candidates had survived an effort to participate as candidates in the first Republican primary held since 2008, pitting Mark Elmore against Amit Singh and drawing only 5,863 total votes cast, compared with 13,556 in the Democrat primary, over double. And as shown in current trends in voting, also falling short in recruiting candidates or precinct captains at the local level, Republicans are hardly gaining sufficient ground to surpass the threshold of soliciting at least 1,000 qualifying signatures to demonstrate a modicum of support to warrant the opportunity under law to run as a congressional candidate in the Republican primary. You got to know when to hold, know when to fold, know when to walk away, and know when to run. Even if every hand is a winner and every hand is a loser. Under the current law, while the duly constituted authorities of a political party for the district shall have the right to determine the method by which a party nomination for that office shall be made, a grant of discretion. The state party legal counsel has taken the position that they have only one choice, which may run into some constitutional concerns, that a convention as currently defined under the plan would have the practical effect of excluding otherwise eligible voters who cannot attend the convention. Specifically students, regardless of vocation, members of the military on active duty, regardless of vocation, those who are disabled, regardless of how, and those who, especially post-pandemic, find themselves in quarantine with communicable diseases of public health threat, and as such, preventing any committee from selecting it as a method of nomination, as if these persons could not do as the Democrats have done right here in Arlington, do it online. But obviously beyond the capabilities of the Arlington Republican Party and BA8. And while one candidate had survived the petition signature solicitation process, the only question now, according to the Republican leadership in BA8, is, are you willing to pay at least $25,000 just to collect enough signatures only to be defeated by one of the wealthiest members of Congress in the November election? And they are preparing now for legal arguments in Richmond to explain why they could devise no method to enable the party to continue holding nomination conventions, which certainly seems possible with modern technology, or simply lower the signature qualification threshold to participate in a primary right now, for which a precedent decided by the courts of appeals in Richmond have established a number of 400, or even the 1/3 threshold that was established for some candidates during the pandemic. Why would a party that wants to win be arguing to make it more difficult to recruit candidates who can compete in elections? Welcome to Real Politics, where you sit is where you stand. And who wants to beat a millionaire? This message was approved by Major Mike Webb. Honest.